Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, I greet you in the name of the Almighty. I want to speak today on a subject that is near and dear to the hearts of many, a subject that we often find ourselves pondering when life seems to stand still, when the storms rage and the waves crash around us. That subject is this: God is preparing you for what you have been praying for. So many of us have prayed for change, prayed for healing, prayed for deliverance, and even prayed for success. But what do we often find? It feels as if nothing is happening. There are moments when we wonder if God is hearing our cries. There are times when we look around and see others receiving their blessings, and we ask ourselves, why not me? Why is it taking so long? I want to remind you today that God is not a man that he should lie, nor the Son of Man that he should repent. God does not forget his promises. But the question is, are you truly ready for the answers to your prayers? Are you prepared for the blessings that you are asking for? We must understand that God is never in a hurry, but he is always on time. The delay you are experiencing in your life may not be a denial, but a preparation. God is preparing you for the weight of the blessing. You see, the challenge we often face is that we want the harvest without the process. We want the finished product without the refining. But God in his infinite wisdom knows that the growth and strength you need to carry what he has in store for you are not developed overnight. Just think about the way God operates. He is the creator of all things. He understands the intricate nature of your soul, the depths of your character, and the foundation of your faith. When you pray, he does not simply answer your request. He looks deeper into your heart. He sees the potential within you and knows exactly what you need to be able to handle the blessing you seek. He is preparing you, often through trials, challenges, and circumstances, to carry the weight of the gift he is about to pour into your life. I want you to consider the life of a seed. When a seed is planted in the ground, it doesn't immediately spring up to become the full-grown tree it is destined to be. No, it has to go through a process. First, it must be buried in the dirt, in a place where it seems to be hidden and forgotten. It must endure the pressure of the earth, the struggle against the elements. But in that process, the seed is growing. It is being stretched. It is being formed into something greater than what it was when it was planted. And when the right time comes, it breaks through the soil and begins to rise. What was once hidden is now visible. What was once small is now strong. This process mirrors what happens in our lives. We pray for breakthrough, but we don't always understand that before the breakthrough comes, there must be a breaking. There must be a pressing. There must be a transformation that takes place within us. God is not simply interested in giving us what we ask for. He is interested in molding us, shaping us, and equipping us to receive and handle his blessings in a way that brings glory to his name. When God prepares you for what you've been praying for, he is working on your character, your mindset, your heart. He's asking you to trust in his timing, to trust in his process. It is easy to become frustrated when things don't happen as quickly as we want them to. But God is building something in you that cannot be built in a hurry. The lessons you learn through the waiting period, through the struggle, are what will sustain you when you finally walk into the blessing you've prayed for. Consider the story of David. David was anointed as king while he was still a young shepherd boy. He had no idea what was coming, and surely those around him did not see what God had planned for his life. But before he could wear the crown, he had to go through the valley. He had to face Goliath. He had to endure the jealousy of King Saul. He had to hide in caves. Through all of this, David learned how to trust God in the midst of adversity. He was being prepared for the throne, prepared for the leadership role that would require wisdom, patience, and reliance on God's guidance. Without those trials, without the preparation, David would not have been the king God intended him to be. You see, the process that God takes us through is not to punish us, but to prepare us. When God begins to shape you, it is not for your destruction, it is for your destiny. It is for the fulfillment of the very things you have prayed for. The prayer is not just for a blessing, it is for you to be ready to steward that blessing, to be mature enough to handle the responsibilities that come with it. God is preparing you by testing your faith, by testing your patience, by testing your integrity. He is asking, can you remain faithful when nothing is happening? Can you trust me when you don't see the answers? And if you can answer yes, you are being prepared for something great. You are being equipped for something far beyond what you can imagine. But there is another side to this preparation. It is the recognition that God does not want to simply bless us for our own good. He wants to bless us so that we can be a blessing to others. The promises God has for you are not only for your own enjoyment, but also for the benefit of those around you. You are called to be a conduit of God's goodness, to reflect His glory and share His love with the world. This is part of the preparation, understanding that your blessing is connected to your purpose, and your purpose is far greater than what you might have initially imagined. So I challenge you today, don't grow weary in well-doing. Keep trusting, keep praying, keep believing. The blessing is on its way. But in the meantime, God is doing a work in you. He is shaping you, preparing you, so that when the time comes, you will be ready to step into the fullness of what He has promised. Your prayers are not in vain. God is hearing them, and He is working behind the scenes. Trust in His timing. Trust in His process. He is preparing you for something greater than you could ever imagine. Keep your faith strong, your heart open, and your mind focused, for God is about to release a blessing in your life that will exceed all your expectations. May God bless you, and may you be ready for the amazing things He is about to do in your life. The timing of God is often one of the most difficult aspects for us to understand. We live in a world that demands instant gratification, where everything moves quickly, messages, food, even our work. We've grown accustomed to having things at the snap of our fingers. And in that context, the waiting periods of life can feel like burdens we are unwillingly forced to carry. But when it comes to God's timing, we must shift our perspective and remember that His timing is always perfect, even when it feels slow or delayed. In our human understanding, waiting feels like inactivity, as if nothing is happening while we wait for our prayers to be answered. Yet in God's divine wisdom, waiting is an active process, not a passive one. It is in the waiting that God does His most profound work in our lives. We often pray for things and it seems as if nothing is changing, but in reality, God is preparing both us and the circumstances around us for the right moment to release His blessings. God does not operate according to our clocks. He operates according to His perfect design for our lives. He is never in a hurry because He knows the end from the beginning, and He understands exactly when the timing will be right for us to receive what we have prayed for. When we look at the lives of many biblical figures, we see a consistent theme of waiting. Abraham waited for years for the promised son, Isaac. Joseph was in prison for a decade before his rise to power. The Israelites wandered in the wilderness for 40 years before entering the promised land. Each of these individuals faced periods of waiting, but those seasons were not times of abandonment. They were times of preparation. God was using their waiting to shape their faith, to strengthen their resolve, and to build in them the character they would need to carry out the purpose He had in mind for them. We must learn to trust that while we are waiting, God is working. While we see only the present, God is orchestrating the future. He knows when the conditions will be right for the blessing to be most beneficial. Before the promise, there is always a process. This principle is one that we often forget in the midst of our desires and prayers. We want the promise, the blessing, the breakthrough, but we often do not realize that the fulfillment of those desires is intertwined with the process of preparation. It is in this process that God shapes us, molds us, and equips us to handle the very blessings we ask for. Think about a seed being planted in the ground. The seed must go through a process of being buried, broken, and stretched before it can sprout and grow into something greater. The process is necessary for the seed to develop the strength to endure the elements and to produce fruit in its season. Without this process, the seed would never have the capacity to bear the fruit that it is destined to. Similarly, before we can receive the promises of God, we must go through our own process of growth and development. This process might include challenges, tests, disappointments, and even failures. These are not signs that God has abandoned us, but rather indications that He is preparing us for something greater. The process is not just about enduring hardships, but about being transformed in the midst of them. As we face difficulties, we are often forced to rely more on God, to trust in His timing, and to develop patience. These are the qualities that God knows we will need when the promise is fulfilled. The process strengthens our faith, broadens our understanding, and deepens our character. It teaches us humility, persistence, and dependence on God. When the promise finally comes, we are not only ready to receive it, but to steward it well. Think of the lives of people like Joseph and David. Joseph received a dream, a promise of greatness. But before he could sit on the throne, he had to endure betrayal, slavery, and imprisonment. David was anointed king, yet he spent years fleeing from Saul, living in caves and facing battles before he could assume the throne. Both of these men had to go through a process of refining, testing, and growing before they could walk into the promise that God had made to them. The promise was always there, but the process was essential in preparing them for the weight and responsibility of that promise. Trusting in God's preparation is not always easy, especially when the path seems unclear or when we face unexpected difficulties. In moments of uncertainty, it can feel as though we are being tested beyond our limits, and the promise we've been waiting for seems farther away than ever. Yet, God's preparation is a work of deep intentionality, and while we may not always see it, He is always at work, shaping us for the destiny He has planned for us. Every experience, every trial, and every challenge is part of His meticulous plan to equip us for the purpose He has set before us. God knows us better than we know ourselves. He understands the intricacies of our hearts, the depths of our weaknesses, and the potential within us. While we may see challenges and obstacles, He sees opportunities for growth and development. His preparation is never random. It is carefully designed to bring us into alignment with His will and purpose. Often, what we perceive as setbacks or detours are, in fact, His way of strengthening our character, expanding our capacity, and preparing us for what lies ahead. In our moments of impatience or frustration, we may struggle to comprehend why things are not moving faster or why we have to endure particular circumstances. But it is in these moments that our trust in God's preparation is tested. Trusting in God means believing that He is working behind the scenes, even when we cannot see the immediate results. It means acknowledging that His plan for us is far greater than our understanding and that His timing is perfect, even when it doesn't align with our timeline. God's preparation is often a process of refining. Just like gold is purified through fire, we too are refined through the trials we face. These trials do not destroy us. They refine us, purify us, and prepare us for greater things. It's easy to want the end result without the struggle, but the truth is that without the refining process, we would not be able to handle the blessings or the responsibilities that come with them. God is preparing us to be vessels strong enough to carry his gifts, vessels that are mature, humble, and ready to fulfill the purpose he has for us. Faith and patience are two essential qualities that we must cultivate while we wait for the promises of God to come to fruition in our lives. It's easy to trust God when everything is going well, when our prayers are answered quickly, and when we see tangible signs of progress. However, when the waiting seems prolonged and the answers seem distant, it is in those moments that our faith and patience are truly tested. God uses these waiting periods to strengthen our ability to endure, to deepen our trust in him, and to refine our understanding of his faithfulness. Faith in its purest form is not just belief that God can do something, but a steadfast trust in his timing and methods. It is a confidence that even when we don't understand why things are happening the way they are, we trust that God has a purpose and he is always in control. Patience, on the other hand, is the ability to remain hopeful and content while we wait for the manifestation of God's promises. Both faith and patience work hand in hand. It's not enough to just believe that God will answer our prayers. We must also have the patience to wait for his answer in his perfect time. When we face delays, it's easy to become frustrated or even discouraged, especially when we feel like we've been waiting for so long. Yet God's delays are not denials. He is actively working on our behalf, even when we cannot see it. Sometimes the delay is an opportunity for us to grow in faith and to develop patience. It's in the waiting that we learn how to lean on God, how to trust him with our hearts, and how to remain faithful even when the situation seems bleak. God knows the exact moment when it's the right time for his promises to be fulfilled in our lives. If he were to release the answers to our prayers prematurely, we might not be prepared to receive them, or we might not fully appreciate the depth of the blessing. The waiting period is not about inactivity, it is about preparation. As we wait, God is deepening our faith and teaching us to trust him more. Patience is not just about enduring the wait, but about growing through it, trusting that he is working all things together for our good. God's blessings are not meant to be confined to just our own lives. While we often focus on the blessings we are praying for, whether they be financial, relational, or spiritual, there is a larger purpose behind those blessings. God's ultimate goal is not just to elevate us for our own benefit, but to use us as vessels through which his goodness can be poured out to others. When he blesses us, it is with the intention that we will, in turn, be a blessing to the world around us. The blessings that God has in store for us are meant to be shared, multiplied, and used to serve others. As we receive the gifts God has prepared for us, we are called to reflect his love, grace, and mercy in the way we handle those blessings. It is not enough to simply experience the goodness of God for ourselves. True fulfillment comes when we understand that our blessings are an invitation to bless others. Whether through our time, our resources, or our influence, God expects us to use what he has entrusted to us for the betterment of those around us. Think about the story of the Israelites as they entered the promised land. God promised them a land flowing with milk and honey, a place of abundance. But that abundance was not just for their own enjoyment. It was meant to be a beacon of hope and a model of God's provision to the nations around them. They were to be a light to the world, showing others the goodness and faithfulness of God. Similarly, when God blesses us, he does not do so simply for our own enjoyment. His blessings are meant to overflow into the lives of others, to bring hope, encouragement, and support to those in need. This is a shift in mindset that many of us need to make. We often view blessings as personal rewards, but they are also tools for greater purpose. The material, emotional, and spiritual blessings we receive are opportunities to be conduits of God's love and generosity. When we bless others with what we have been given, we fulfill a greater calling, a calling to partner with God in His work of bringing healing, restoration, and light to a broken world. The more we bless others, the more we align ourselves with God's heart, and the more we see His kingdom expand through our lives. In conclusion, as we reflect on the fact that God is preparing us for what we have been praying for, we must remember that the journey toward receiving His promises is not a passive one. It is an active process that involves faith, patience, trust, and preparation. God is never idle, nor is He detached from our desires. Every prayer, every petition, every moment of waiting is being used by God to form us into the individuals capable of handling the blessings we see. He is preparing us not just for the blessing itself, but for the purpose He has in mind, a purpose that is often greater than our immediate understanding. The process of preparation often involves challenges, setbacks, and delays. However, these are not signs of God's absence, but rather evidence of His active work in our lives. Just as a seed must be buried and broken in order to grow into a mighty tree, we too must go through our own process of refinement. The struggles, trials, and waiting periods are not meant to defeat us, but to shape our character, strengthen our faith, and teach us to depend on God fully. Without this preparation, we would not have the endurance or maturity to manage the responsibilities that come with the blessings we desire. Faith and patience are essential elements during this period. We must trust that God knows what is best for us and that His timing is always perfect. It is easy to become impatient when things don't unfold according to our expectations, but it is in these moments that our faith is refined and our patience is tested. Trusting in God's timing means surrendering our own timeline and accepting that His plan is far better than anything we could ever envision. Furthermore, as God prepares us for the blessings we pray for, we must remember that those blessings are not just for our benefit. God's ultimate purpose is for us to be vessels of His love, grace, and provision. The blessings we receive are meant to overflow into the lives of others. They are opportunities to be a blessing, to reflect God's goodness, and to extend His mercy to those around us. God desires for us to be conduits of His blessings, bringing hope and healing to a world in need. Ultimately, God's preparation is about more than the fulfillment of our personal desires. It is about aligning our hearts with His purpose and learning to live with an eternal perspective. The process is designed not just to lead us to the blessing, but to make us more like Christ, to deepen our relationship with Him, and to equip us to be a part of His greater plan in the world. As we navigate this journey, let us trust in His wisdom, embrace His timing, and allow Him to shape us into the people He has called us to be. The blessings will come, but the transformation we experience along the way is just as important as the destination.